Welcome to Manufacturing Talk Radio, your everything manufacturing podcast, with host and veteran manufacturing industry expert Weiss and co-host Amy Nicklaus. Make sure to check out our catalog of 800 previous shows on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Now, let's get into the episode.
Good day, everyone. This is Lou Weiss with Manufacturing Talk Radio with my co-host, Amy Nicklaus. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Good day. And we're here with Susan Spence as the co-chair, the chair of ISM Manufacturing. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And thanks for coming back. Okay. We have the report for June, and we're going to get right to that. But first, I'd like you to give a 30-second explanation about the since 1931, you've been sending out these reports for people so that you can create a report. So tell us just a little bit about that.
Since 1931, someone, not me, I was not even born for 30 more years. The report has been out, I think, since the Hoover administration, and my understanding of the history is the president wanted some indication of the economic health of the country in the middle of the Depression or something like that. So really interesting history over 80 years. And what happens is once a month, the ISM organization sends out a survey to hundreds of manufacturing sector panelists in 18 sectors of the U.S. economy. And these folks take a survey, answer questions about what's going on with employment and prices and production and exports and orders and backlog relative to the month before. And then twice a year, they give a forecast of what they think is going to happen in the next year so that we can have a little bit of a longer view. So it's really fascinating. And these panelists also can enter comments about what's going on. So we certainly have numbers and formulas where we will give the index as a result. As interesting as that is to look at the sentiment of what people are feeling about each of those areas.
Being that you mentioned about the semi-annual forecast, which we had only about 6 days ago, so for the balance of 2026, it looks really like it's going to go great guns in spite of a lot of uncertainty and all of that stuff. But also to pat ourselves a little bit on the back, we had 250,000 people that listened to your show, you and Steve Miller.
Yeah, well, we're really happy about that. And, you know, this isn't a place for a personal opinion of mine or Steve's, other than when we sat in the chair, is this what we would have thought, or is this how we would have reacted? But these are people that really do know what's going on. And what's nice is when you can see a pattern across multiple industries that have maybe nothing to do with each other. And we certainly saw that around tariff chaos last year and the inability to hire because there was such unknown about what was going to happen to prices if these tariffs happen or not. So with all of that, we did have a pretty good month, a little bit of a slowdown, if I may get into that.
Amy is going to post the chart so that our audience can watch it as you talk about it.
Sure.
So Amy will post a chart with a lot of numbers that I didn't create, but were reported in the panelists, and this is a view we put in there. And I'm just going to talk about trends. I like to talk about these sub-indexes with the category of demand, output, and input. Demand is new orders and new export orders, backlog and customers' inventory. Output is production and employment. Inputs is everything else, supplier deliveries, inventory. So if we start with demand, we are still in an expansion with new orders and backlog. But we did lose some ground in growth. So for instance, we went down in new orders, but we're still above 50. So that's good. New export orders did go back into contraction territory, unfortunately. And customer inventories lost ground, but that one is good because when inventories get too low, customers have to reorder. So 2 of those 4 sub-indexes are still in positive territory. On the output side, which is production and employment, that is mixed. Production is in its 8th month of expansion, which is great. Employment is still under 50, so it's technically in contraction, but it's gained another 1.1. It's getting so close to 50, which we love. And on the input side, when supplier deliveries are above 50, that means the supply chain is slowing down. In normal times, that means they're busy and it takes longer to get product out and the lead times go up. But we saw supply chain congestion with things like the Strait of Hormuz closing, or when tariffs were hitting last year and ports were getting congested. So this one, the supplier delivery could mean either of those things. We're going to assume that it's okay right now. And inventory went back into expansion territory. So as new orders and production have stayed above 50, inventories are building a bit, so we think that's good. The price index dropping 9.1, that is wonderful. Prices is another input index. We're down to 73. I think that's the lowest for about 4 years. I believe that was the statistic that was cited. So,
Yeah.
so it's a good report for that reason. And I'm going to take a breath and then tell you about sentiment based on all the comments.
Just for a commentary on the, can you bring that chart back up for a second, Aim? Okay, so in terms of the numbers, take a look at unemployment. It dropped. It went up, but it's 49.7. I've always thought about, and I've been doing these reports with the ISM now for over 10 years. Any number that seems to be between 49 and 51 is sort of like no man's land. It's like, is it really under 50 or is it really over 50? And it's kind of maybe yes, maybe no. So when I see something like 49.7, I'd say that's still okay.
Yeah, I think it's creeping toward 50. I'm just looking down here because I want to look back to, last year were some pretty scary employment numbers. Pardon me 1 second while I flip. I think at one point mid last summer was down around 43, wasn't it?
Yes, yes.
That was very, very scary. So in March it was 48.7, went down to 46.4, back up to 48.6, 49.7. But I think it was around the time Tim Fiore handed off the report writing to me, and it was in the 43, 44 range.
Yeah, it was terrible.
And people really we used the word frozen. People were frozen. They're saying, I don't know what's going to happen with tariffs, therefore I don't know what kind of cost increase I'm going to have to take on prices and raw materials, and therefore I better just hold on hiring people because my order streams are kind of drying up, right? It was a lot of bad stuff going on.
Right.
And then in December, we saw some slight optimism with the forecast on what revenue was going to do. For instance, I think we thought, the panelists had said in December that they saw a 4.4% increase in revenue for all of 26, which surprised me. It's like, despite the kind of awful year that went on with chaos and such, that they still think that is pretty interesting. And then you started seeing some of the expansion happen. Well, now they're saying it's going to be 8.4 for the year.
Yes.
Right? Likewise, prices, they only thought were going up 5.4% when they were forecasting in December. It's up to 12, but a lot of them are saying most of that we've already taken. And so it does feel positive and optimistic. What are the things that can ruin it? Continued war, another round of tariffs, and this is the month that the 150 days run out on, I think it was section 123 or 232. But as we start to see new tariffs being announced, it gets me a little worried. unless they're maybe around the 10% and within the confines of the law around tariffs versus something that just seems really egregious. So we shall see, but we've got some nice upward momentum, even if it's slowed down a bit.
Okay.
And the sentiment, if I may, the sentiment, if I look at all the comments, starting with general comments, the positive to negative, last month for every positive comment, we had 2.7 negative general comments. This month, for every positive, we have only 1.9 negative.
Big difference.
New orders, which is really demand sentiment. Last month, it was 1.6 positive, demand is good, to 1 negative. It's up to 2.7 positive to 1. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
The positive comments on what's happening in the manufacturers for production last month, 1.75 people commented positively to 1 negative. That's up to 2 to 1. New export orders, that's the one that went down a little bit as far as numbers, but last month, 1 positive comment to 2 negative. Now we're 1.5 positive comments to 1. And the real big one, the hiring versus managing your workforce, meaning not backfilling or laying off. Last month was a relief because for every person hiring, there was only 1 that wasn't. This month, there's 1.8 people hiring, or 1.8 comments hiring to 1 that's not. So what's a 1.8 comment? If I have 100 comments that are positive and 50 negative, I'm 2 to 1. It's simple math.
Right.
So those sentiment indexes have all improved and haven't seen that, at
Okay,
least
that's
in
great.
real time. Yeah, so
That's great.
I'm optimistic, yeah.
So, Susan, let me ask you about, we talked about this earlier, and as I was reading, as we talk about what respondents are saying, I was reading one of the comments that was made, which was requests from suppliers in Europe and India for energy surcharges have stopped this past month, and we're seeing continued capacity growth in Asia Pacific region, excluding China, and then it goes on. But one of the things that I didn't understand and I thought would be good for our viewers to kind of get a good sense of what that means, energy surcharges.
Yeah, so my assumption is when the oil shock happened, folks were starting to get hit with a surcharge. When I worked at FedEx, we had a fuel surcharge. We did not hedge the price of jet fuel. At least when I was there, we didn't. I think they had done it years before. So what you do is you pass through whatever the increase is, and you can either throttle it up when you need to or throttle it down, but you don't affect the price of the product, right? So I'm assuming that this comment was around as energy and crude oil went way up and a lot of ancillary products went up, the fuel charges were passed along, right?
Okay.
I think you see that, someone was telling me they saw it on their restaurant bill. It was you, Lou.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Right, or it was a merchant fee. Let's not get Lou all wound up about that one again. But fuel, transportation of food. It's like if I'm a small business owner, or even a medium business owner, and I'm now getting a fuel surcharge from everyone delivering, produce to my, and meats or whatever, then eventually I'm going to maybe pass it along because it's not a small amount of money and it's meant to be temporary. So I believe that that's what this respondent might be talking about.
Okay.
Amy,
All
and,
right. Makes a lot of sense.
Amy and I are here in New Jersey, and as I pointed out to you a week ago, it seems as though that the reduction of gas here in New Jersey by about $1 a gallon, which is significant, seems to be holding.
Yeah.
A week ago it was under $1 lower and still is as of this morning.
Yeah.
So there's some good stuff. But then again, there's California at $7 a gallon higher than everybody.
Well, and in New Jersey, they will pump your gas for you. You don't even have to get out of your car. So,
Not only will they, but they have to, because if you're not from Jersey and you forget about that, like
I
and
think
they
the reason why they
pretend to be like, get back in your car, ma'am. This is New Jersey and it's a law.
the first time I came to New Jersey, that's exactly what happened. They were like, "What are you doing?"
I got my
I
own
think
gas
they
card.
do. I think they do that in New Jersey because they don't think that we're smart enough to pump our own gas.
Oh, I doubt it. I doubt it. It's nice though when it's snowing. And it's also nice that our prices are so much less than California and we get the added benefit. But yeah. Yeah.
So give us a little bit more insight into some of these comments that we're reading.
On my last interview, the comment from the transportation equipment provider about the 232 tariffs was brought up. I picked that one for a number of reasons. First of all, I like to always have comments from the big six, right? But this comment was the new 232 tariffs continue to destroy our profitability and demand as we have to raise prices to deal with this gigantic tax. And this is the real interesting part. Add the inverse perverse incentives causing our company to pivot to purchase non-U.S. source material. And I won't read the rest of it. You can, because it's a little bit of a poke in the eye. It's interesting, and that's why I bring up replacement tariffs, right? So if they're used for their intended purpose, especially if they're meant to be temporary to drive a certain behavior, that's one thing. But if you remember when the Supreme Court ruling happened in February, I think there was more than one comment from representatives of the administration to say, we're going to find another way. And I understand the attitude, but unfortunately, maybe it's my oversensitivity having reading a year worth of comments to say, not knowing what's going to happen next and when the other shoe's going to drop is just making us stand still. And that ain't good, because that means we're not hiring people and our customers aren't ordering, and nothing good can come of that. Well, it feels like since February, we've been coming out of that, and even a war hasn't really damped down the way we worried it would. I mean, it has a bit, right? Prices were certainly through the roof. So that's why I say if we can have reasonable tariff policies come out of whatever the investigations are being done before the next announcements happen, and if the manufacturing companies can believe that's what's going to happen and not change every other week, then I think we can keep going with this expansion.
Okay, great.
Even though, expansion is, it's a big guess as to whether it's going to go up or down. But the point about employment, I think that companies tend to hold off employment until they're convinced that there's really an upturn.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the last to improve. Am I correct there?
That's what I've been seeing, and having sat in the seat of the purchasing manager, I too, in my last few years of FedEx, was, impacted by the lack of an ability to backfill. And I understand it and actually agreed with it. It was painful for me and my team because we had lost 25% of the staff. But the company's point was, listen, especially if there's transformation going on, it's very expensive to hire and train and deploy people, right? It could take up to a year depending on the skill you're hiring for. So if you have uncertainty and you're not sure what's going to happen with your revenue and your order stream, then you would rather wait on a backfill than hire someone and have to lay them off later, right?
Yes. Amy, I'm sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, I said that makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have to, big part of business is planning, no matter what size business you're in. But
on a going forward basis, Susan, and you did do the forecast, just a 6-month forecast, just a week ago, and in combination with this report today for the month of June. What's your overall continuing view of futures?
Well, my view is to tell you what the view of 600, 400, 500, companies are telling us in the panelists. So every percent increase is improved since December. So in December, the percent of respondents that predicted an employment increase back in December for 2026. So in December 2025, the panelists told us that they expect a 0.4% increase in employment for all of 2026, like virtually nothing. Well, that's tripled to 1.4. It's still not a ton, but it's tripled is the point. Revenue for the full year of 2026, back in December, these panelists said 4.4% revenue pop. It's 8.4. That doubled. Yeah. That's a big deal, right? And every other forecast for an increase, whether it was operating rate, production capacity, capital expenditures, is better. Prices, unfortunately, also doubled, right? So in December of 2025, the panelists predicted that prices would go up in the first 6 months of 2026 by 5.4. Well, they went up 11.9. However, for the full year of 2026, the number is 14.1. That means that they already paid 12 of the 14%, and there's only 2 more to go.
Yeah.
So even that is good news. So the price increase have not only slowed down, but they feel that they've seen most of it already happen, which to me says the second half of the year ought to be really good, unless you get this chaos again. And so,
There's always the unless.
economic policy is meant to incentivize, I suppose, with tariffs, countries to do or not do things.
Right.
But the very large numbers that get thrown out, and especially if it's a negotiation tactic, it whipsaws the business community, is what these panelists are telling us. And they told us that all last year, and we saw that in the numbers because they didn't hire, they weren't getting the orders, production was down, shuttering plants, sentiment was in the tank, and now it's kind of reversing. But I don't expect, if we had that chaos come back, I think the same thing would happen, right?
Right. Well,
I have one question, and I don't mean to make it sound like a gotcha, but has there been any analysis done on your stats that based on the forecast that's made today as to what the end result is
Yeah.
6 months down the road?
Yeah, well, you'll see it if you read the semi-forecast report. In all these indexes, it'll say, okay, here's what they said in December, here's what it really was. And then in some cases, it'll say, here's what was predicted in 2025, and here's what happened. So you could see how accurate or not it was. But it's not accuracy, this is what people thought was going to happen.
Right.
This is what really happened.
Yeah, the emotionality as opposed to numerology.
Or maybe not emotion, but, in December, it really didn't look great, but things have changed. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then guess what is great? Every month you get an update on that. That's why, you take this data with other data, but someone asked me, it might have been you, Lou. I don't remember. If things are so dire, why is the stock market so great? It's like, well, that's looking backward 3 months of earnings, right? It's looking at different things. The stock market in some ways is a prediction on what the future is going to be, but these purchasing managers are seeing it every day, and they should know because they're getting the signals for demand, and it's either there or it's not, right?
And these reports that you do on a monthly basis is basically reporting on what happened the last couple of weeks.
What's happening as compared to last month. So it's very fresh data. I mean, it's a lot of work for these survey takers to do this every single month. And having read hundreds and hundreds of comments, some are short, but a lot of people are taking the time to say, here's what's happening, because they know that people look and read at the report. And in some cases, they're hoping someone's going to listen and kind of believe the data and say, despite what you want to have happen, here's what is happening.
Right, correct.
And same for services, right? So it's good information, I think.
oh,
Very good.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I think we really always appreciate you having you on. It is really great information. I think it's really important that we get this new information every month because it's makes a big difference on how we're going to take a look forward and how our businesses and our manufacturers that are looking at us are making their decisions. So it's really great to have you on.
Just one comment. At one time, I mean, we've been doing these shows with you now for almost 13 years. I think this November is going to be 13 years. And one of the things that I've always noticed that when I had my metal distribution company where I sold raw materials to manufacturers, that the stats always coincided with the sales in my metal company.
Yeah.
And it was always consistent. So I I would always be able to see sort of forecasting what next month's sales are going to look like based on what your panel has been telling us. So
It's a great correlation. And when you have, I said it in the beginning, when you have 18 sectors as diverse as food, beverage, apparel, leather, those poor apparel leather guys, it's not good right now. Because what's expended, what could you do without? Maybe some apparel. But when you see patterns across all, there's certainly differences, but then consistency, it's like, you could ignore it at your peril, right?
So, as a wrap up, do you have any final comments beyond your past comments of the last few moments, which were very insightful?
Thank you. I appreciate it. The thing I didn't mention was the percent of manufacturing sector in contraction versus strong contraction. Last month, 2% of manufacturing sector GDP was in contraction, 2% in strong. It's up to 5 and 3 now. But in early fall, it was 85% in contraction. So I'll take 5 and 3 any day.
You
right?
You bet.
Yeah.
Okay. Amy?
No, I mean, I already said my closing. I thought this is great. I think make sure to come back next month.
We'll be back.
Well, the one good thing that I have to report is that our air conditioning system is working. And considering it's 90 plus degrees out here in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But at least we're not in Florida where it's 95% humidity, 95 temperature.
That's true.
We're going to keep cool, and I feel sorry for the people in Europe who
Yeah.
are really suffering badly.
Yeah,
But maybe they'll buy into the concept of air conditioning, which they don't have a lot of.
that's a whole nother show.
You bet. Maybe air conditioning companies should go over to Europe and create a new market.
All right, you guys, thank you so
Amy?
much.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap.
We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of Manufacturing Talk Radio with hosts Louis Weiss and Amy Nicklaus. Before you head out, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review. For more information about the show and the manufacturing industry, head over to mfgtalkradio.com. That's mfgtalkradio.com.